Takes two to dance. And once you do that, you can do this as they're coming forward. So, and by the way, when you do push-pull, small steps forward, big steps back. Why do you think that might be important?
You draw them into a big step forward, so when you do the change, they're taking a large step and you're coming in short and fast.
Right, so one of the best times to attack somebody is when their front foot's in the air. If you have control, they can't back up. They can't run away. The other thing I will always say is never attack a retreating fencer. It's just a bad idea. Right. So if you've got them and they're backing up and you take multiple steps, they're just gonna plant it. You know, they're gonna wait for the perfect moment, take that small shallow step at some point, and you're gonna get hit. Right. So if you go into a flesh and they've backed out of it, you don't want to keep running at them. I'll guarantee you after my knee's operated on and I get back to full 100%, I'm going to be playing with you guys a lot. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to invite the attack. And we'll get into different ways to invite the attack. But from the distance, you can invite the attack. You can come a little too close and back out. But again, what the difference between inviting with distance and getting hit is very, very little. Right, so if I'm fencing in a national event and I'm up in the final 8, and by the way, this really happened. The guy was posting, he's got a longer reach than I do, so what I have to do is I need to pull that arm out so I can grab the blade because he's posting and he's got a real good skill about disengaging off my blade. What I have to do is go in there, close enough for him to attack, but not close enough to hit. So I need to do this, this, and then this. Well, I misjudged. There goes my my trip to Limoges for the Worlds. So that's really, it's really important that you judge a distance. Now I had a problem with Xavier earlier because I kept on forgetting about those 3 extra inches. And there are ways that you can tactically limit your exposure if you don't have the skills, and we'll talk about that. But again, if you have the skills, you won't need to camouflage them or hide them. And you can really fence. And by the way, once you get past the local levels, you better be fencing like this anyway. At national level, you can't go, even in the United States, you can't go the top 32 consistently without having these skills. You may get there a few times, maybe. But today's FA is so much stronger than it was a decade ago when I was fencing still. Okay. Again, when is the best time to attack? Well, when you're in control, period. That's it. So one of the things in footwork and control is when the person has the weight on their back foot. And we'll start talking about, as far as distance control is concerned, this is a mantra I have. I can't control your physical fitness. You need to get that done. Yeah.
Do you mean like a cut, like when they've been going back and they start to come forward, or they've been going forward and they begin to go back? Is that what you mean?
What you want to do is you want to be the initiator of the action. Always initiate the engagement. If your opponent initiates, no.
No, I need something to write on.
I ran out.
Yeah, you ran out, so I was going to steal some papers, but I need... Yeah, what?
Yeah,
you need
tear
to
some
boot.
pages out.
Yeah, technical pages up for me.
Yeah, that's good.
Still looking for,
I
something
look-
to write,
So
to
I
put...
think that's a positive question because things that seem intuitively obvious after you're told are not intuitively obvious. So, what is distance? What does that mean to you? Chris? Yes, you will be involved in the conversation.
All right. The distance is being able to hit without being hit.
Well, no, it just don't think too hard. You're going too deep here. Distance is just simply the distance between you and your opponent, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just keep it simple. You're getting too smart for me. Okay. And when I say critical distance, I define critical distance as the distance in which you can hit your opponent or you can be hit by your opponent. Okay? And it's important to know which end of the stick you're on that one. Okay. And what's correct fencing distance? Depends on the moment. It doesn't depend on the person necessarily, but yeah, I take it back. It does. There's a series of things that are important with distance. And correct fencing distance is the distance you can get to do what you need to do tactically. Is fencing distance static or dynamic?
Dynamic.
Okay, and when I say static or dynamic, does the fencing distance between two fencers stay the same the whole way? No, it keeps on changing. And one of the reasons it keeps on changing is because you're going into the middle distance, and I'll have to talk about that, in the middle distance to draw your opponent out into an engagement to a point where you can have control. Okay. And when I say that great footwork enables great blade work, I see a lot of people saying, I made a terrible counter six. It was way too big. Okay? And the diagnosis is not the blade work. The diagnosis is the footwork because the distance is too close. If you find yourself doing this, you're too close. If you're at the perfect distance, you're going to do it every time. You're going to do it right. But it's a matter of being at the right distance and controlling the distance. Okay? If you can't control the distance down to an inch, then the best you can hope for is to catch him at the perfect time and maybe flush at him or do that big lunge. But what do you do after that if you haven't hit? It gets really ugly. You get all your weight on your back foot. You can't get out of there. Remember I said when the weight's off the front foot, you got all the way to the back foot. So again, just to point something out, if I have all my weight on my back foot, which direction am I going to go?
Forward.
Right? And all my weight on my front foot?
Backward.
Where do you want to catch me?
Forward.
With my weight on my back foot. Yeah, it was the right answer. Just to set it differently. You want to see. And actually, I prefer thinking of it as the weight's on the back foot as opposed to the front foot's lifted. One of the tells you have with a fencer is whether or not they're going to come after you or not. Is this? Can you see it? I'm getting ready to launch. That's a tell. If we were playing poker, that would be a tell. We know he's coming, and maybe you just bait him a little bit extra, and then step back, and when he lunges, he's short, and you hit him. It can be that simple, but it's got to be that perfect too. So we hide our lack of perfection a lot of times in a lot of extra blade work that's extraneous, because we don't know what to do or we can't do it. So I talked about what happens with bad footwork. You can't start having bad blade work because you're at the wrong distance. An action where you want to lift up and hit on the shoulder. If we're this distance I am from Dr. Siegel here and I do this, I'm not going to hit him. I have to be at the perfect distance to barely hit him. Because I don't want to hit him too hard, because if I try to hit him too hard, I'm going to go past him. And guess what? I like to count blade actions or tempos. So if I go here and miss him, I have to go here. If I go here, I'm a little short. I do 2 tempos rather than 3. I want to reduce that. I want to make it faster. I want to make it smaller and more effective. And you can only do that with footwork. This is the key to blade work, is footwork. We don't spend enough time on it. I give a lot of lessons in blade work, but we don't do enough work with footwork. And when I say footwork, I always want to be synonymous with distance control. Because you can do all the footwork practice you want, but if you can't control your distance from your opponent, you're going to be ineffective. Okay. If you don't practice great footwork, you're not going to have great footwork. If you practice here and you just try to beat the guy every single time, you're not going to be effective. Because what you're doing is you're training yourself, you're giving a habit that's making you ineffective. Now, I know everybody's, I got to do this, I got to do this. Well, I'm talking about the end of the spectrum of fencers that want to be winners every time. This is what you have to do. You may not be willing to do this, But you certainly need to do this if you want to be the winner. And it doesn't matter, it can be a local winner, or a sectional winner, a national winner, international, or world champion. This type of control is required to be the winner. Okay. And I threw something at the bottom. It's just my personal opinion. Your coach is going to tell you what the right stance is and whatever. I prefer a 60-40 stance, a little more weight on the front. It gives me an option to get out or get in. And I was talking to Michael Marks, one of the fencing masters Pacific Northwest, and he's okay with this far. He says, well, what do you do when you get ready to do a sprint? How do you stand? Well, you got all your weight in your front foot. What does that mean?
You're not going backwards.
No, you
You
are.
are going backwards.
Or you can go backwards. But it turns out because you have so much weight forward that you can use the gravity to get you going too.
That's how he teaches his women.
Yeah. And so, well,
And that will get you a flush, but not an advance or a lunge, if you like that.
A
right?
crossover.
oh, you can. But again, he teaches a lot of foilers too. But he coaches Cody.
Cody's
I've
got a
gone
huge
up there.
wide stance.
He does until he decides to go forward. Then you'll see an adjustment. And I don't want you to look at Seth Kelsey. Seth Kelsey is not a good example. He may be on the Olympic team, but he is not
Because he's smart.
the norm. Well, he's got great point control, he's got great distance, he's got great timing, great speed, but his footwork is minimal. And I'd probably get shot on camera for saying that, but it's not as good as it could be. How about that? All right. So footwork, it's about distance. How do we judge distance from our opponent? Come on.
Sitting in.
Oh, say it out loud. From your shoulder. That's what I like to judge distance from. Different coaches have you look at different things. All right. The question is, what are you looking at? Are you looking very focused at a particular place so you have tunnel vision? Or are you looking someplace else and using peripheral vision? I'm going to tell you right now that it's been scientifically proven that your peripheral vision can see movement much better than your direct vision. Okay, how does that apply? Well, I talked about tells, weight shifting to the back, foot coming up. I like to have my students focus on a point somewhat behind the fencer. Okay, that tends to open up the view. You don't have to see the threads in the opponent's jacket. That's irrelevant. What you need to do is see the big picture and react to the big picture. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that the infighting from middle distance inward has nothing to do with vision. You're already there, you're already in the fray. It's going to be full-on reaction from the hands, and that's another thing that you need to be practicing. You need to feel the action and react to it, and that's road memory. That then can come up and play with later. Okay? I have my students look through their opponent's mass, basically. So, judging distance off of here, everything else is target. If this moves, you're still going to get the reach. You know where the reach is. You're also going to see some movement forward or backwards, weight shifting. A lot of tells are available to you. I'll tell you a story. I was at the national championships. I was fencing the 50 to 59 national championships. And one of my best friends and his wife are watching me. Well, my best friend has to fence me in the next round. Now, his wife is an ex-fencer. I'm fencing and I win my bout.
Okay.
And she goes, "You have a tell." I do. She says, "Every time you attack, you do this." It had nothing to do with the feed or the butt. It's this. Right? Totally unaware of it. And, you know, I thought I was aware of most things. Well, that's another advantage of having a good buddy that fences with you, or a coach to let you know you have a tell. Well, his wife told me this. So, needless to say, the bout between Bill and I went very badly for him, because he no longer could use that tell. It was like 10-3, 10-4. So, tells can come anywhere. It's true story.
Is this the tell?
This.
Oh, okay.
This. Yeah, then I started doing this sort of the whole bout. So I don't know whether it distracted or not, but since I never do that with Bill anymore. I always do this. I always fidget my fingers. Bill and I have been fencing against each other for over 30 years. So, and I swear he does not know. He didn't know about the tell, but on a conscious level, I swear it was a visceral, subconscious. Okay, so you're looking for shift in weight for that distance and the distance control. You're looking for other things that will enable your engagement. Other things, but I'd like to talk about kill zone. So, for me there are 3 distances. The Italians think that there are 5 distances, and that's too complicated for me. 3 distances. There's long distance, and these are engagement distances. There's way long distance where, hey, you can't hit me because I'm on the other side of the script. The first place that you have an engagement is at long distance. The long distance can be defined as an advanced lunge to your opponent and hitting on his chest. Okay? Middle distance is a lunge to your opponent hitting, and short distance is an advanced hit. Okay? Now, it's really important to understand that within these different distances, you're going to have different techniques that are going to apply different responses to your opponent, and you need to be aware of those. Now, what most coaches don't do is explain what's happening at what distances to their students. They go through and it becomes very rote for them, and they're left to figure this out on their own. But I'll give you an example. If I go for a touch on the foot, and I'm at long distance, so I do advanced lunge down here, that's going to give my student enough time to just counterattack safely. Because at long distance, we don't do blade work. Long distance, we're going to hit the hand. And there's no way you can control the blade at long distance. Okay? So an example of that, go get your weapon and your mask. I'll just do this. Put your arm out. So, bump, bump, hit to the hand. Okay, at this distance, he can't take my blade. Okay, go ahead. And this, we come out with a little more of this when we talk about blade work. But he can't take my blade. He can't control the action. He can do it maybe a second of 10 off of it and move into middle distance. Middle distance is where basically the blades are going to cross. This is where it gets interesting with blade work. This is where the phrase actually occurs. So long distance is just a pop out and back. Short distance is a pop in, you're done. Middle distance is where everything is interesting. This is where if you have good blade work, good distance to support your blade work, you can get into that phrase. And again, I'll tell you, most people I fence, if they're going to make a mistake, always happens like the third. It's either because of distance or because of a piece of blade work. Okay? So this is where it goes, bump, 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 finish. Because now you get to hold on to their blade. Now, what's required to control your opponent's blade? Physics. Now, first of all, physics says that if I have my opponent's blade on forte, I'm in control. And likewise, the other way around. Middle distance, you're pretty much here, and then you've got to do some really interesting blade work. So again, if you can learn to have good blade work and do those phrases, and you can get to that distance, and you can maintain the distance, you're going to end up winning in a much more consistent manner. And this is hard. The other thing is that, okay, so this is TJ's lunge, the red, and here's my lunge. So I can effectively have TJ within range of an action where I'm out of his range. That's a really important concept. If you have somebody that's this tall with long legs forever, and especially if they're fencing a French style, because you're going to try and take their blade, well, they're just going to roll off and finish. Then they can do a single action, single tempo to get to you, and you can't get to them on that. So you're always in threat, and the other guy isn't. That's the perfect distance. Because then you can snipe from out there. And this also is not just about a length of legs and lunge, it's also about length of arm. What's faster, moving with your feet or with your arm? What's going to go faster?
Arm.
It's always arm. So when you get into a situation where your legs get to the right place, that final extension is going to give it the fastest acceleration. And if he's got longer arms, it doesn't matter how fast your legs are if you're in the wrong place. So for something like this, if the role was reversed and I had the shorter lunge and the other guy had the longer one, I have no choice if I have to go after him than to provide a second intent, and that's going to take a lot of good footwork. Because I'm going to take him, I'm going to extend, he's going to counter, and then I'm going to recounter, because I can't get to him like he can get to me. Beware the mutant in the poster. So you get some mutants out there, and one of the fun things in a local competition, you get these guys this tall, but they don't know how to do anything with their feet. They're just used to doing this. Faster feet's going to win. But at the end of the day, when you get to the higher levels, they're not only tall, but they're fast too. So here's an important concept. This little waveform here. Attack is very, very fast. But the question is, how fast is your recovery? If you have a very, very fast attack and you have a slow recovery, what's happening while you're recovering?
What is recovery?
Say I go attack, and then I come back,
Okay, then
recover. Or I can recover forward. But basically what it is I'm expending my potential energy, and then I have to recapture it. So here's my expenditure of energy, and here's my recovery of it, and setting it back up again. So now I can go again, all right? Same thing we done with the hand, right? So as I go out, I'm done. I need to recover the energy so that I can go out again. So while I'm doing the recovery, I'm at risk. So normally during a recovery, you'll find yourself doing a parry. So you attack on the acceleration, and you defend during the recovery period. Art's eyes are very different.
No, I'm listening.
Right? So I will always use the metaphor of conversation for fencing. Right? So there are pauses in the conversation. TJ, how you doing today? Okay. You doing really good? Bah! So, a punch in the nose is a little physical humor, but the point being is that we're having a conversation and you're doing something to disrupt the normal flow. Okay, and I'm going to talk more about that later. But think about that when you're fencing. If you do an attack and then a remise, getting out of this position is going to take you longer than doing that remise. Now, there are times when you're going to do it. I mean, obviously, generalization. But once your front foot lands, that action's done. You've got to go on to the next action. That action may be a remise, or it may be counter parry repost. What would you rather have, the control? Because when you get out here in a lunge, it's going to take you longer to recover than an advance. Lunge when it makes sense to. It is too. Here's a little bit of wisdom. In a competitive situation, not during practice, but in a competitive situation, if you know that you have to do a lunge or a flash to hit your opponent, and your opponent has better distance and point control, but you have to go after him, time's running out, you're down. What do you think will work better, a lunge or a flush? And why do you think that? Come on. Well, why flush?
Because if he has control of the distance, he's set himself up to be safe from a lunge coming from you.